Welcome to Rewiring Health, your hub for transformation and empowerment. I'm your host, Kelly Kessler, and I'm here to guide you in aligning with your true self. Discover the freedom and vibrancy within you as we release patterns of self-abandonment and transcend the health impacts of stress. Get ready to unlock your potential and embrace the freedom and vitality you've been seeking. Now let's dive in. You may have heard the saying that abundance is your birthright, but yet maybe you're looking around at your life and wondering, okay, when do I actually get to experience that? And that is why I'm so honored to have Larisa Makuch on the podcast today. In this conversation, she dives in how to invite more abundance into your life and transform yourself from the inside out and from the outside in. Larisa is a savvy, sought-after speaker, master results coach, educator, and author of Stop Procrastinating Your Life Away, Discover the Secrets to More Time, Money, and Freedom. With ruthless compassion, Larisa leads highly successful, motivated, conscious entrepreneurs through mental barriers and into unstoppable confidence, authenticity, and empowerment. Holding designations as a certified consultant with Bob Proctor and the Proctor Gallagher Institute, Master Results Coach, Master of Timeline Therapy, Trainer and Institute Head of Neuro-Linguistic Programming and Hypnotherapy, Larisa powerfully blends science and psychology to help you unlock your magic and become all you're capable of being, whether more passion or profit. This was such a transformative conversation with Larisa, and I'm so grateful for all the insights she shared and really helping you unlock the secret to feeling more abundance in your life and inviting abundance in. All right, welcome, Larisa Makuch. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast. I'm so honored to have you here, and I can't wait to dive into what we're going to talk about today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So what I would love to kind of dive into is the topic of finances, money, because this is such a big thing for so many people who abandon themselves, is that typically living in that scarcity mindset. There's never enough. They're not enough. How am I supposed to add more onto my plate when I'm already exhausted, And then they feel like they're just strapped financially, but also trapped in this cycle of feeling like they can never just get ahead, and they're just trying to get through each day in survival mode. So can you just talk about your journey of how you started to invite more abundance into your life?
Yeah, so growing up, I was used to having conversations around money. My grandma would show me her bank statements and get me to read them from when I was like 8 years old. We were used to getting money for Christmas. We didn't really get presents. We just got $100 bills and checks. We were very used to having financial conversations. My first career was in personal finance. My stepfather was in the financial services industry. So we were used to having a lot of that conversation. And I remember even the first financial book I read was when I was 8 years old. I read The Wealthy Barber because I wanted to make an investment with the $500 I'd saved way back then. And so I didn't realize people had difficulty around money until later when I was in financial services. And I was like, I was in my 20s working with people that were 40 and 60 and broke and were uncomfortable having discussions around money. Didn't they realize they needed to do something? They felt so ashamed. And I started seeing that a lot of people have big paradigms. Moving forward, learning about the world of abundance and plenty, I didn't realize I also had money paradigms. I thought the fact that I was comfortable talking about money and learning about money and growing money was fine and good enough, but I didn't realize all of the scarcity paradigms my grandparents had instilled in me. My grandmother in particular, she grew up in the war. She didn't have a lot, and so she really instilled the value of making every dollar stretch. We would never buy things full price if we didn't have to. Her theory was, if you're going to get something good, get one good thing, but really treasure it. But everything else has got to be cheap or on sale. And so I remember lining up at 4 a.m. on Boxing Day to go to the stores to get Christmas decorations at 70% off. Not that we needed more. We had an entire room of Christmas decorations, but my mother would see 70% off. Let's get up to beat the line and get a good deal. And so my whole life in terms of spending was always very scarcity driven because I didn't feel like it was okay for me to just buy something full price. There was an intense amount of guilt. And so I realized this later on as I started learning more about just money paradigms and how energy works. And I realized like this is not cool. And there was a moment, a defining moment I had when I started working with the Proctor Gallagher Institute. So I was a consultant for Bob Proctor and his Proctor Gallagher Institute. And there was a conference in LA that I was going to. And I remember I purchased, like, I was very used to spending money on education, money on certain things, but like, if it was not education, it was a waste of money. That was my mentality. And there was a moment where I was like, I purchased a first class ticket, and it wasn't like a cheap upgrade. It wasn't a good deal upgrade. Like I literally made the purchase myself, and it was a huge paradigm shift. And that was something that Bob used to encourage us to do, is have these paradigm shifts where you step out of your comfort zone and do things a different way. Because for the first time, I was like, wow, like I'm here. I like sitting in the first class lounge. I like being the first one on the plane. I like seeing other people I know going to the same conference, walking back and looking and seeing like, wow, like she must be doing something right. Like it was a different kind of feeling. And it was I had never given myself permission to do that because I was always trying to scrimp and save and be less than, right? And like I didn't want to be, I wanted to be good enough, but I never gave myself permission to have that feeling. And that first time doing that and being willing to do that was a huge shift. And being willing to see what that investment did to my confidence, to the entire mindset of that trip, how much work I got done up in first class because it was comfortable. There were no distractions. Like I got very productive work done. And it was such a different experience. And so I've had many moments where I've given myself permission to splurge or buy things and challenge that paradigm, even with things like clothing. My previous career, I used to work in Pilates and in a movement space. So I wore yoga pants for a living and bare feet. And I also had a lot of really glamorous gowns because we went to fundraisers and galas and events, but I didn't own a pair of leggings, which I learned from my image consultant are not Lululemon pants.
Yeah.
They're not leggings. I learned that there's a whole other category of leggings, how to assemble outfits,
Mhm.
how to invest in certain pieces that are full price, and like jackets that were not inexpensive, like outfits that were not inexpensive. And then there was the cheap and cheerful mix, but she really got me to look at like the whole package. And when I started investing in certain things, I started feeling differently. And so in terms of my journey of money, it started like very unaware, aware that there were problems, and then starting to get to the state of acceptance and really looking at things in a mindful, intelligent way. I am definitely not perfect. I've got a lot of growth and learning to do. However, I've really looked at the evolution, and a lot of clients that I work with, they have challenges. It doesn't matter how much you earn. It doesn't matter what your status is or what your background is. I've seen it all across the board. Everyone's got something, and until you deal with your thing, nothing's going to change.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I want to dive into that deeper because, for many of us, we can like look at, okay, I'm buying the things, I'm doing all the external work, and I'm seeing the things, I'm experiencing that. How much of that is it like external infiltrating the internal, or is it internal infiltrating the external? Can you talk about that dynamic?
I think that's a really great question. I love it because so often we think that there's just one answer. I don't think there's necessarily one thing. It's like the chicken or the egg. The
Mhm.
internal affects the external, but the external does affect the internal. So it's like if you have crappy thoughts and you don't fix them, it doesn't matter what outfit you wear that day, you're still going to feel bad. However, if you put on a cute outfit and give yourself permission to play dress up and look in the mirror and say, you look pretty damn good. You're going to have a better day. All of a sudden, that influences your mood and the choices and how you feel about yourself. And so they really are symbiotic. And I think you can never have one without the other.
Mhm.
And so often people are like, you have to do the inner game before you do the outer game. Or or it's kind of, but if you think of actors, like when an actor puts on a wardrobe and clothing, they
Mhm.
walk different, they talk different. Like I'm not wearing sweatpants right now. I'm not wearing like a sweatsuit. I put on a jacket. Why? Because I wanted to have a smart conversation with you. I want to have like a
Mhm.
really great conversation. And I know I'm going to feel better wearing a jacket like this, having lipstick on, and being dressed up than if I was just like in a ripped t-shirt.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's going to do something for me. And you have to do both. But
Mhm.
I think the inner work where a lot of people get stuck is they think the inner work is like, okay, I'm going to do my inner work and check this box. Okay, I've done my inner work. Now I'm going to do my outer work. And it's not like that. It's like you've got to do the inner work every day, whether you think you need it or not.
Mhm.
I have a morning success call I do with my clients 5 days a week, even on holidays. And we
Mhm.
meet every morning. And if they don't want to show up, they don't have to, but we meet at 6:30.
Mhm.
Why? Because if you plug into something good every day, you're going to have a better day. If you have good days, you have good weeks, and all of a sudden everything in your life gets better. But if you only plug in when you're falling off the wagon and you're using it as a recovery strategy, you're doing it in high stress mode and it's not going to stick. But
Mhm.
we do the mindset work when we're in a good mood, when things
Mhm.
go wrong, when things are interesting in life, when things
Mhm.
are challenging, and also when things are going just really good. We're like, damn, like this is a really good week. Let me just acknowledge myself. And so you learn who you are on a daily basis and how to navigate through that. And then it just becomes easy and natural and you build this level of confidence like never before.
I love that. And so much of that, like you said something that really stuck out to me is that, just checking the box. And that can be such a trap that many people get into is like, well, I showed up, I did it, I did my hour, I did this, and just check the boxes. Can you talk about like how we embody the change versus just being like, I did all the things, why am I not seeing progress?
Oh, totally. I think, yeah. And one of the things I see is so many high achieving women, like successful women, like
Mhm.
we read the books, you go to seminars, you do the journaling. You're like, well, the morning routine that they say is successful is you got to not hit snooze,
Mhm.
make the bed right away, drink the lemon water, do my workout, read my book, do my 5 a.m. club, do my meditation, and they've got this checklist, but then it stresses them out and they might go through the motions, but it doesn't work. And I think I get a lot of people in my world where it's like, well, I've done this and it's good, but I know it can be so much better. And it's because they're checking the boxes. And I one of the simplest things I think we often do, especially with the morning calls, I've been doing them for 4 years. They started as an accident for clients. I'm like, I'll show you what I do. And then 4 years later, we're still doing them. But it's
Yes.
great because we slow down. Like
Mhm.
maybe we'll read something one day. And my intention is to read an article,
Mhm.
but someone might get stuck on something. So we might spend like half hour, 45 minutes reading one paragraph or
Mhm.
deconstructing a sentence, like really discussing it, looking at it, Googling aspects to it, questioning different angles. And we give ourselves the time. It's
Mhm.
like, so what if you read one paragraph versus one article versus one chapter? We give ourselves the time to explore. And I think when you're checking off a box, you're in a hurry. And maybe one day all you need is to answer one question. Maybe
Mhm.
another day you need to breathe and put your hands on your heart. Maybe another day you need to cry and just let all the crap out and journal and then just and pray and invite something good in. And we get fixated on like we have to be diligent. I think we need some level of structure and diligence, but go easy on yourself. Like settle down, chill out. And like I used to do gratitude and check the boxes and I was like, who cares? But then
Mhm.
when I actually did it and I felt grateful, it was like so much better. So I don't do gratitude every day. Why? Because if I don't care, it's not going to make a difference. I'll
Mhm.
do it when I'm inspired and I do it several times a week and I'm grateful all day long. But I'm
Mhm.
not going to just write it on a list because someone says I need to.
Absolutely. Yeah, that deep dive makes such a difference. And as you were speaking, I remember watching an interview with Bob that Bob Proctor did, and he talked about how he read Think and Grow Rich, but it would take him like a whole day to read like 3 pages, not because he was a slow reader, but he was letting every word sink in. And then he read that book. I don't even know how many times he read it, but he said he just read the same book over and over and over again. So it's just that message of like, let it sink in, allow yourself to actually feel it and embody it. It's so powerful.
He read that book every day for almost 60 years.
Yeah.
think he was
Yep.
good when Brian, his son Brian, was born December, and Bob started reading it, I believe in the summer, like right before Brian was born. And
Mhm.
so his son basically got like Bob on personal growth his whole life. He got
Yeah.
immersed in that. I've actually done some training and work with Brian, and I know Brian from working with the Proctor Gallagher Institute, and he's just like this amazing human that was literally brought up and embraced this work. He had to find his own path and his own way of doing it, but it's really beautiful to see that perspective because very rarely, like I wasn't brought up that way. And I remember when my mother, she did my program, she did my work, she actually studied in
Mhm.
my group, and she's like, I'm so sorry I didn't teach this to you earlier. I'm like, I'm not, because I'm so grateful that you're learning this now and you're making the changes now. Like, sure, it might have been nice back then, but everything does work out how it's supposed to. And when you live in regret, it's not great, but it's never too late to start. And I think, so what if it's later? Like, you can start changing your life today. You can change your health, you can change your wealth, you can change your relationships, you can change your career, your entire destiny. Like, look at how some of Colonel Sanders didn't start, what is it, KFC, until he was in his 60s. Like, so
Yeah.
many of these big businesses didn't
Mhm.
start until people were in their 50s, 60s, and sometimes even 70s. So if you have a dream, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lot of those challenges that give you that contrast of realizing when you do have more flow in your life, how beautiful that really is in the moment. I want to go off of something because this is something that I think many people get trapped in, especially with social media. We hear all this information, all this financial advice. It's a lot of it. And we take it all in and we get overwhelmed with it. How can we know what's aligned with us versus what's not aligned with us and be able to decipher the messages that truly are meant for us and how we can move and grow in our lives?
I think like we you got to calm down to speed up. If
Hmm.
you're just in a hurry, rushing, and this is something Bob used to say as well. He's like, I move twice as fast as people half my age, but I'm never in a hurry. So he knew how to move quickly, but he was never in a hurry and never in a rush. And you can get a lot done when you just slow down and calm down and give yourself permission to just step back. It's like pulling back the slingshot before it springs. There's a little tension, but you might feel like you're going backwards, and you've got to give yourself the time to listen to your intuition. And intuition, I think, is one of the best guides. It's not the only thing, but when your gut is saying something, your energetic spiritual realm knows things that you can't comprehend here. You just don't have the words. It's not that you're not smart, but your unconscious mind and your spiritual realm have access to information beyond your conscious level of awareness, like beyond your comprehension. And when you start to listen to that and tune into it, you can start making better decisions. However, I'm going to say, don't just be like, Spirit, what do I do with this thing I have no idea about? Do your homework, right? Like, if you have no clue, you've got to make the best decision with what you have. But if you're trying to do something, like if you're going to get into real estate investment, you might want to just learn a little bit about it and then make the best choice with the information you have. It's not about overthinking, but do your due diligence and
Hmm.
then make the best choice. But you've got to listen to your heart. However, you still have to do your homework. Like,
Hmm.
you're not going to get behind a wheel and say, Intuition, teach me to drive. No, you're going to listen to your driver's ed instructor when you're first getting into a car. I mean, it was not hard to drive, but I watched my parents drive. I learned. We had theory on it, and then intuition knew how hard to hit the pedal. Like, you might
Hmm.
jerk a few times, but it's pretty easy to feel it out when you've had some experience with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in this world we get so caught up in that instant gratification where like I want the results now without actually taking the action. So it's so important that it's like do the mind work, the emotional work, but also you actually have to do the work too.
Huh.
So absolutely. One thing I want to just get into too is like when for someone who's listening and they're like, okay, I love this. It very much resonates with me. I'm looking at my world, I'm looking at my bank account, and everything's telling me that I'm not abundant, that there is true scarcity, that maybe the going to the grocery store is a challenge and you're trying to pay for daycare and there's all these things that are taking your time, your energy, your money. How can that person start to cultivate more of a mindset of abundance and take a step forward towards that?
That's a great question. So, what you focus on expands. And so often when things aren't working out, what do? We notice the balance in the bank account. We notice what we don't have. We bitch, complain, and worry and talk to 10 of our friends about it, and we spread that and pollute our universe with it. And when you starve something of attention and focus on what you truly desire, you become a magnet. Albert Einstein said, everything is energy. That's all there is to it. Match the frequency of what you desire, and you can't help but get it. This is not philosophy, this is physics. And so if you don't have something, you're not energetically aligned with it. You're feeling bad, your belief system is off, your strategies, yes, it might need work. However, at the core, it's you and your energy. And you don't know how you could attract something, and you don't know where opportunities are going to come from. But if you don't shift this, if you don't shift your state of being, it's never going to change. And so you've got to really diligently focus on what you do want, work for what you do want, and be energetically and I'm going to say physically aligned with what you do want. You've got to position yourself, and it's not just about thinking it. It's you've got to fully embody it. And so let's say so after I got divorced, we lost everything. 2008 market crash was not friendly to us. So I lost everything. I had to move back in with my dad in my late 20s. Not
Mhm.
the highlight point of my life, but I spent the last bit of money on retraining myself. And there was points where I was like, I was counting every dollar, every penny I was spending because I was like, okay, I don't want to go back in this position. I want to rebuild. And so I was very cognizant of what I had and what I was doing, but I also realized I really made aligned choices. I would be willing to spend big money on things that were important, but I wouldn't spend $2 on something that wasn't important to me. And it at that point, it wasn't about scarcity, but it was like, what do I really value and what's going to enhance the experience of my life?
Mhm.
And what did I focus on? I focused on helping people. I focused on serving. I focused on working because I loved working. I was like, I'm just going to work. I've got nothing else to do, might as well do this. And I fell in love with my new career at that point. And so what did I do? I wanted to work more. I earned more money. I had one sales position that was just sucking my soul at that point. It was just misaligned. And I told my husband, my new husband at the time, and I said, I'm like, I want to quit this. And he's like, well, what are you going to do to make up for it? I'm like, I will work 3 times more because I was earning less money in my new career, but I know I'll be happier. And so I did. And very quickly I was able to increase my income. Why? Because I did something that was aligned. I did something that made me feel good, where I could contribute in a way that I felt good about. And I would save my money every single month, every single paycheck. And it started little bits at a time, but then those little savings grew over time. I was focused on work, but then years later, I bought a car in cash. We went on vacations, like big European vacations, all cash. So I had cash in the bank because I was just used to putting certain things away and having discipline with money and really prioritizing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a huge point. You talk about that energy, the soul sucking job, because there's so many people. Like, I know I did that for a while. I was in a job and I'm like, I hate going here every day. It's like crushing me. I was exhausted. And it was like, it was scary to leave that because it's also that security of like what you have a solid paycheck coming in. But it was like the minute I left that too, it's like things open up for you. And can you speak to that person? Like when, they want to leave this job, but that's so much fear is like suffocating and then paralyzing them. How do they navigate the fear of that to move into a different life and open up that energy?
Yeah, I think eh, change will always cause disruption. Good change, bad change. It doesn't matter what kind of change it is, but I find so often I talk to people, they're like, I hate my job, so I want to be self-employed. I want to have freedom of my time, money, and everything. And they don't realize that being an entrepreneur is not easier than being employed. And I think really knowing if you want to leave something, you really need to know what specifically you're walking away from.
Mhm.
And I know in my previous position, in that sales position, it was just I didn't know my product.
Mhm.
And I started to know my product at the end, and it actually got exciting towards the end, but I really didn't know my product as well as I should have. That
Mhm.
didn't make me feel good. the new thing I was doing, I understood it so much more and I was so much more enthusiastic to study about it. So it was just it wasn't that I was running away from the idea of sales. It was just it was I was moving towards something I was genuinely interested in. And I
Mhm.
think so often, and I was also willing to have less money. I was willing to not have it work out. And so often people don't have the stomach to maybe not have the finances or they don't position themselves. And you've got to be willing to put up with a little risk if you're going to make a shift, if you're going to make a change. It's not always going to be easier. It's not always going to be an upgrade, but you really need to know what you're trading for. And I think with whatever you're doing, if you really look at your attitude towards it, if you're not having a good attitude in one place, are you going to still have a good attitude in another arena?
Mhm.
And so often it's just taking one problem and moving it to a different place, and then the same problems keep following people.
Mhm.
I look back and I was like, wow, my attitude wasn't good in that. Like I was doing so many things okay on the surface, but it was all surface level. And I realized I'm like, wow, I really didn't have a great attitude, but I actually did have a better attitude over here. So it made sense in that point.
Mhm.
But I think you really need to have a hard conversation with yourself. There in Science of Getting Rich, there is a chapter, I think it's chapter 13 or 14, acting in a certain way. So Wallace D. Waddles. And he says, if you want to leave one position or leave one place for another, act like you have the best attitude. Act as though you are the best person there while you're there. And then
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if you do move because you're going to be taking the right energy with you. And
Mhm.
I really think so often we look at circumstances or people and we blame outside forces. Oh, well, it's my boss. Oh,
Mhm.
well, it's my coworkers. Oh, well, it's the drive. Oh, I'm just not earning enough money. And not really knowing what the actual problem is and complaining about it is soul sucking. But when you start looking at like, what part am I playing in this?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't like my boss because they're actually calling me out on things that I should be doing and I'm not. Maybe
Mhm.
I should just do my job better and accept feedback. Maybe they are giving feedback and you might not want to hear it. Well, what if you actually accept it and realize it's a gift instead
Mhm.
of a criticism? That could change things. So I don't think there's a one way answer.
Mhm.
You've got to be willing to answer some hard questions for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That inner work is absolutely crucial, and it is a lot of that blame game that you see, and then it's just the you create the same scenario in just another place each time. Yeah, and then for someone who has been doing the inner work, they're working towards cultivating a new lifestyle. They view themselves and they're with different beliefs. They're starting to see the change in mindset, and yet they're not seeing the external world change. Can you talk to that person that's like, I've been doing all the work, I feel differently, I believe in the abundance, I'm visualizing, I'm feeling it, I'm bringing a different energy, and yet my life is still the way it is? Is there a gap in that? What's going on for that person?
So a couple things. You've got to see it in your mind before you can hold it in your hand. So
Mhm.
you've got to if you're there and you're not seeing it, there's a part that's not there yet. Maybe it's you need more time. And I think so often we get impatient. We think, oh, I'm there, and 5 seconds later I should have the physical result. Well, they often say your business is 90 days behind you. And so
Mhm.
what you do today is going to have a ripple effect later on down the road. And so it's really critical to remember that there's a gestation period for your goals, for your dreams, for your desires, and you just may need to give it more time. If you're genuinely feeling aligned, stay there because it's not about the result, it's about what you do to get to the result. Keep doing it. If in your heart you know you're doing the right thing, you've got to keep doing it because if you're just going to chase the result, it's never going to happen.
Mhm.
Also, I think a lot of people just they give up too soon. And maybe you do need to tweak a strategy. Maybe you do need to tweak an aspect and you're like 2 millimeters from gold. You're just like right around the corner and you feel good, you're there, but there's like just a tiny microscopic shift that needs to happen. If you're not willing to make those little micro shifts and stick it out just a little bit longer, so often people give up just like right as they're on their cusp towards success. And so if you actually do feel it, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep going with micro shifts, not major shifts. If in your heart you're being really honest, be patient.
Mhm.
The opposite of cell phones and dopamine hits.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Which we train our brain to do all the time and actually literally change the wiring of it. Absolutely. For that person too, like if they're on the path and then they like see maybe they took the risk, they invested in something or they went for it and then they had maybe a huge setback, like they lost all the money or something like that. How can they transform that to not think it's a failure, it's not meant to be, even though they feel in their heart? How do you make that to actually be a stepping stone in your journey?
I think everyone's failures are their greatest learning opportunities. If you don't learn,
Mhm.
you can learn the learnings or you can take the losses. If you see it as a loss, you're not learning what you need to learn to move on. And every apparent failure has absolute gifts. I know like the most terrible things that have ever happened to me are my greatest gifts, and they are the things I am most grateful for. And in my heart and soul, I could say like, yeah, this was something I shouldn't like, and things I did like
Mhm.
dumb mistakes I made. I'm like, wow, what an interesting choice I made in my life. And I'm
Mhm.
glad I made it because now I have the opportunity to not do it again, to
Mhm.
do better due diligence, to actually not cheat my way through something or to have that awareness. And it took me a while to really figure that out. But when I started seeing one after the other, all these like tragedies that were life's greatest gifts, it was hard not to ignore. And it's your job to see the gift, no matter how apparently bad or tragic the situation is. There's
Mhm.
always someone out there that's got it worse off than you. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we live in a pretty pretty good world. We do. And I'm not saying that everything is going to be easy. It's not, but it's your job to notice the blessings so you can invite more.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And do you mind talking about your routine? How do you keep yourself aligned with your actions and how do you keep your mind in a place and your energy in a place where you can attract abundance into your life?
Yeah. So every day, what like first thing I do is I like to work out in the morning because it gets my physical energy up and alive, and I have long days and I wake up early, so I get tired pretty early.
Mhm.
Don't talk to me at 10 p.m. It's not a good
Same.
time for bed by then. Um,
Yep.
however, I like working out. Sometimes it's like bare minimum. I do a 10-minute like metabolism boosting workout. If I
Mhm.
have more time, I might work out for an hour. So my minimum is like 10 minutes no matter what. And if I have more time, I'll go easier. I like um our housekeeper comes on Wednesdays. And so on Thursday mornings, I like to take a little longer to work out because I'll be like, I'll fold a little laundry. So we hang our laundry to dry. So I'll fold some laundry and then I'll work out. I'll fold some laundry and then I'll work out. So
Mhm.
I'm not into housework, but that's one thing because we want it hung to dry. So that's what I do in the morning. So I play games with myself and I have fun with it. Um, I make sure to read or study or learn something every day. I reconnect to my goals, and I think a lot of times when we forget what's in front of us, we forget our priorities. So I plan and then do. So I plan my week, I plan my day, and then I can execute. But there's always a connection to what's the point.
Mhm.
The other thing that I started doing, like I mentioned 4 years ago, is I had my own morning routine that made a difference because Bob said study every day. So I did, and it worked. And I realized I told clients to do this, but they didn't. And so I said, I will share a part of my morning routine with you. And so every day for a month, I invited them to join me for my morning routine. And so they did, and it was awesome. And then I showed them how to study. I showed them how I think. I gave them like the inside stuff that I don't always share with everyone else. Like when I'm
Mhm.
public facing, I'll share certain concepts, but when I'm private facing, I have my own thoughts. So I literally let them go inside my head. And it was great because what they did is they actually clicked join now. And what they were avoiding before, it got to be really easy for them to show up for themselves. And within that first week, things started to change in their lives because they were doing the work. And it wasn't just, oh, yeah, I learned this tool on a Monday night call. They were actually applying the tool and they were studying and they were reading and growing. They were planning their days, they were planning their weeks. And so after that month, they're like, Larissa, you can't stop doing this. So we've kept doing the calls for the last 4 years because I really started to like them. I thought at first I was like, I'll only do it for a month, but they keep me grounded. And so I always I find that for me, like they're a real necessary part. I've taken a couple weeks off where I've gone out west to go on vacation, and I'm just like, I need the connection with people. I need the connection with myself because I force myself to show up. And when I force myself to show up for them, I always feel better. I always get so much out of it. And I think the studying, like the mindset routine, is so important for me because it's something so consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, 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 I like my weekends where I take more time, but if I don't have it during the week, my days get very discombobulated. It's just they're so much less organized. And so we read, we journal, we meditate, we mix the things up, but I have that set block of time. So from 6:30 to 7:30 every day. And those are a couple of things like the movement and the mindset, got to do every day no matter what. What I do with them can vary. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I've also started to do is just take more breaks in the afternoon just because I started waking up so early. And I like
Mhm.
doing my own work before the calls just for myself. I might take a nap in the afternoon. I might meditate in the afternoon. I might go for a walk in the afternoon. So I like doing something in the afternoon to reset and recalibrate and just give myself a bit of a break. Otherwise, I just find my energy dips and crashes, but not in a constructive way. I think there's just a natural dip after lunch anyway, around that 2 p.m., 2 to 4 p.m. time. And so I give myself a lot more space and grace to read something, to do something different in the afternoon if I need it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Um, but I never gave myself permission to rest.
Mhm.
And that was a
Yeah.
big change, is giving myself permission.
Mhm. Yeah, it's key. And I love the fluidity of it, that it can vary, but you're each day you're showing up for yourself and it may look different, but that's that like integrity that you build within yourself, that self-trust. That's huge, just having that consistency. So I so appreciate you sharing that because it's, someone might just take one thing from that and like start to integrate that and say like, oh, I like that. Okay, I'll start adding that into my routine and then see the difference that it makes, even just these small shifts each day. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then for someone who wanted to connect with you, reach out to you, where can they find you? And I'd love for you to share your book as well.
Yeah, so this is Stop Procrastinating Your Life Away, Discover the Secrets to More Time, Money, and Freedom. So jam-packed full of information. This is less of a pleasure read and more of a workbook. It's like if you take it and go chapter by chapter and apply the tools, you will change your life. But I think so often it's less about procrastination and more about you having the courage to go after what's truly most important to you. And that is what we want to do, is we want to encourage women around the world to go create their own ripples and take courageous action every day on things that are meaningful to them. So that is available at stopprocrastinatingbook.com. So stopprocrastinatingbook.com. And that's probably the simplest way to find me. We're also on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. LinkedIn is like the main one where we live the most, my team and I.
Yep.
However, yeah, if you want to download the book, it's accessible. The whole book is free, and there's bonus materials, and we want to invite you to take courageous action in your life.
Amazing. I'll put everything in the show notes. So if you're listening, definitely grab the book, connect with Larissa. And I'm so grateful for everything you shared today. Thank you so much. I know this is going to plant a seed in someone's mind that will grow into some more abundance in their life and more freedom. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Again, for anyone who's listening, share this episode if you found value in it. You know that someone else will too. So definitely, if there's anything that stuck out to you, I'd love to hear from you and then share along the way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If there was something in this episode that really resonated with you or a message that stuck with you, please share it with someone else. It's only through sharing these messages that we can start to rewire our minds to feel empowered and live the life that we truly desire. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to Rewiring Health.